Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We are 100% listener supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is John F. Burroughs. John Burroughs, U.S. Air Force Security Police retired, a native of Illinois. Burroughs entered the Air Force in 1979 and served over 26 years in the U.S. Air Force. He was assigned to RAF Bentwaters in June of 1979 as a base policeman. On the night of December 25th and 26th, Burroughs accompanied Sergeant Penniston in an investigation of unusual lights in the Rendlesham Forest adjacent to the base. What began as a routine response to a possible base incursion or accident scene would become the defining episode of Burroughs' life. Subsequent to his encounter with a craft of unknown origin, Burroughs' career continued to provide him with training in law enforcement and investigation, which would prove invaluable in his personal investigation of the events in Rendlesham Forest. Of key concern to Burroughs are the medical effects resulting from his encounter, which have prompted, in his words, an ongoing campaign to force the authorities to reveal the truth about what happened and to seek justice for the men and women caught up in these incidents, some of whom have suffered adverse physical and psychological effects. This campaign has a number of strands, including legal action, targeted Freedom of Information Act requests, and the book Encounters in Rendlesham Forest, published by St. Martin's Press, one of the world's most prestigious publishing houses. And you can find this book on Amazon.com, by the way. And please welcome John to the show this evening. And John, how are you?
Good. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's an honor to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. And, so much information. Your case is just one of the most, it seems to me like to be one of the most high profile and credible on the map across the world. And obviously, we have Roswell and other things, but this one really has some, 100% validity, if you ask me. There's nothing that I can even dispute about it. But I do want to thank you for all you've contributed in the military and also for communicating this event to the masses, because it's quite significant and very important. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'd like to ask you what guided you to come forward about this case and what drove you to push to get this information revealed?
Well, early on, I really didn't have a lot to say about it. I was on active duty. I was in the military. And I just kind of wanted to, I don't know if the word go away, but I just kind of wanted to let it go. But as I got older and the big case, first it got released that it happened, and then everything changed in most of our lives because we were promised pretty much from the beginning that this wasn't going to ever see the light of day. They weren't going to let it out. Mm-hmm. But when it did, you couldn't help but want to talk about it. People started calling you up, asking you questions. But what really changed a lot of things for me was a couple of things. A few years ago, there were so many people out there, I'm not getting into the witnesses themselves, but different people that were trying to say they knew what happened to us. There were, different things about what we saw, what went on. That really got to me a little bit, and I wanted to start looking a little closer at, a lot of different things. And then my health started deteriorating. I had issues right after the incident, but then it started to get really bad. So that's when it really motivated me to start digging into this.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly, can you give us an idea insofar as what it did to your physical matrix and your neurological system, if any?
Well, right after the incident, several of us had different issues. My particular issues was I didn't feel well. My gums turned white. I had a lot of throat and eye problems. And then a few months later, they diagnosed me with a heart murmur, which the interesting thing about a heart murmur is you can't get in the Air Force if you have one. Mm-hmm. So they diagnosed me with a heart murmur. It was mitral valve prolapse. So I had regurgitation already at a really young age, which is not normal. Mm-hmm. But it was monitored over the years. So, I hung in there. I didn't have a lot of problems for quite a few years, but about 4 years ago, I started having serious problems. I had AFib, congestive heart failure. My civilian doctor couldn't figure out what was causing it because overall my heart was healthy and, I didn't have any of the other problems that would normally cause AFib and congestive heart failure. Mm-hmm. So, so what happened to me, it surely, and when all the stuff that went on afterwards, appears that whatever we encountered had something to do with the damage to my heart.
Right. That certainly sounds like it. Now, were you checked for a radiation signature of any kind? Did they did a medical check on you afterwards, didn't they?
No.
They did not. Okay.
No, they didn't do much. Okay, for me, I don't even remember being interrogated. Quite a few people said they were called and interrogated, but no, they didn't do a medical check that I remember doing. In other words, I wasn't taken into the hospital and checked out, but supposedly different stuff went on where we were brought in and interrogated. So.
Wow, and you don't remember anything like that, huh?
No, I have no memory of being brought in and interrogated. The only thing I remember was going in and writing a statement, reporting to the deputy base commander, then the base commander and the wing commander.
That's really wild.
Giving them an idea of what went on, and that was it.
Right. Do you think you might have some screen memories?
You know, definitely something is keeping me from remembering. It could be what we encountered. It could be something that if I was interrogated where I was blocked or I had stuff put in me, or it could be a combination of both. So, but I mean, I clearly don't remember, you know, each time I got close to it, what some of the people around me said happened to me happened, and or being brought in and interrogated afterwards. So. Wow.
That's amazing. And how has this really affected your life? Obviously, it's kind of haunted you in some way, hasn't it? To some degree?
Well, it didn't for a long time. I mean, physically I had some issues, but it wasn't severe. And, you know, as far as I was concerned, and people, I always say this, but it's true. Think of the difference between 1980 and today. Back then, there was none of this social media, internet, or nothing. And even to correspond with somebody, it was either an expensive phone call, you know, especially if it was long distance or overseas, or letters, and it took forever. Where nowadays, you know, you can do instant messaging. But the bottom line was I couldn't explain it. The military didn't seem like they really wanted me to, and they didn't seem really interested in having it get out. So I just went ahead on with my life, you know, and left it alone.
Right. Well, I think that's kind of smart to some degree. And did you receive some kind of telepathic communication at all with this craft or lights?
Well, okay. This is like I like to be real careful with this because what I remember, I don't remember anything like that. What came out under hypnosis is a whole different story. It does appear that that did go on, yes. But remember, it was hypnosis, not, you know, something that I remember. So.
Right. Yeah, I actually saw a video of you with the hypnosis. I think it was Linda Moulton Howe did a presentation, and it was a very good video, actually. They had a little clip they played about it. It was fascinating, actually.
Right. So, well, that's just a little bit of what all came out. So
it's amazing. It really is. Yeah, so you guys, I really recommend you all, if you're listening, check it out. Check out the video. I'll try to post it. It's incredible, actually. And were you hard? Obviously, you weren't hard to put under, were you?
Yeah, I actually was. There's another whole story behind the hypnosis. I mean, it's been a series of things over the years of interest with people either directly involved with the government or outside the government that probably had government ties. But the particular guy that put me under couldn't put me under right away. And I don't understand hypnosis very well in the first place, but the people that have reviewed it and watched what he did to me to get me under, it looked like he triggered something on me to cause me to go under.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't easy to put me under. He had trouble. He struggled like 3 different times before he did something else, which it appeared to put me under.
Well, that's kind of good.
From there.
In a way, I guess it's good. It's interesting. And it was June of 1979, correct?
The incident?
No, actually, that wasn't it. No. What am I thinking here? That was your regression or no?
I actually went under hypnosis, and I'm trying to remember now. It was like in 90 or 88, I believe it was.
Okay.
It was in the fall of 88 is when I actually went under.
So. Okay, so there wasn't one before that, huh?
No, that was the first one, and I've had a couple other ones done after that.
So I'm going to double check that. That's really interesting. Did you ever receive a premonition before this encounter? I mean, did you get an interesting kind of vibe or anything that kind of alerted you that there was something weird that night?
I never had, let's put it this way, the night I came on duty, there's no way in a million years I thought anything strange was going to happen. It was Christmas night, you know, and it was just like, let's get this night over and get our 3 days off. So no, but looking back, the month prior to the incident, and I've never had this before the incident, other than that one particular couple weeks or after, really, I don't know why, because I was an 19-year-old kid contemplating having a good time, you know, not worrying about life and everything. But for some reason, for a couple of weeks during the time frame of November, I was really contemplating a lot of things, and I can't even explain why prior to the incident.
That's interesting. It's almost like you were tuning into something on a different frequency. Now, from what I understand, you had lights and also the triangle-shaped craft, and obviously a beam of light. And at some point, you vanished for like 45 minutes. You were unable to be located. Is that correct?
Well, I saw lights, and I drew a statement that looked like, it was like an oval orangish light with, white light in it, blue, and different colors. Sergeant Penniston actually, when we got close to it, after the way he explains it, I'm trying to do the best that I can, was there's a bright light, we hit the ground, and then as the white light dimmed, he saw a triangular craft, which he labels a craft of unknown origin. And and then he actually went up to it, saw glyphs on it, touched it, had a binary download. Okay. But for me, all I remember is what I drew in my statement was, different colored lighting and an orange oval light.
Wow. That's fascinating. And obviously, I think somebody mentioned, whether it was you or Sergeant Penniston, that there was some type of a pull. It pulled you towards it.
That was under my hypnosis.
It was, okay.
It sounded like we were being pulled towards it. And the missing time that you brought up, when we came back in from the forest, when we actually finally finished everything, we're coming back in. When we met up with the group, what we remembered was that our watches were 45 minutes slower than what the real time was.
Wow, that's wild.
And it was reported, and the shift commander at one point even did an interview a few years ago where there was 45 minutes where they actually lost contact with us.
Right, and you guys had radio.
Yeah. Yes, they lost radio contact with us for around 45 minutes.
That's amazing. So what was it, just like white noise? Did they get any type of communication at all? Just static?
From what I understand, they just couldn't reach us. We couldn't reach them. They couldn't reach us. So you call on the radio and you get no response back either.
Wow. And what kind of radios did you guys have?
They were Motorola's. Okay. I forget what they were, but they were handheld Motorola's that we were carrying.
Wow. That's just wild. Yeah. I know that I when I was listening to your regression, it really, I just found it fascinating. And I was wondering if you actually have some kind of a bleed through effect after that regression. Do you still kind of remember things on and off now since you've had a regression?
The regression itself, I was shocked to see what I said. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's not like I go, oh yeah, now I remember that. The stuff that came out, the one thing that, a lot of people are critical of hypnosis, but most people that have viewed this definitely say I wasn't being led. There was at one point where there were some questions being asked and stuff, but a lot of it is just like what happened, and bam, I just went into a long drawn out thing of what went on without any questions being asked or anything.
Yeah.
Stuff. But I don't remember nothing that came out of hypnosis is different than it. In other words, whatever I remembered, a lot of that was in my hypnosis, but the different stuff that I don't remember afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah, that's what went on. I didn't have that,
That's good. Yeah, it's interesting because it was almost like it reminds me of sleepwalking or something, where a lot of people who sleepwalk don't remember anything they're doing. They'll have a conversation, they'll go to bed, and they won't remember anything. So
right.
That's very fascinating. Yeah, it's just it's really interesting. And the color of the lights, can you describe the lights? I mean, obviously I don't know if you saw color or not.
Well, one of the things that's interesting is that I always, especially early on when I was interviewed, they'd ask me what it looked like, and I always said it looked like a Christmas light display. There was different coloring lights like green and blue and red, and then within the object there was this red oval, and then it was like an orangish color, dark, orangish, dirty orangish color, and then there were blue lights within it, so there was different coloring that was in it that were moving, that were appearing and flashing or like blinking or whatever, however you want to call it. It's hard,
Right. Yeah.
So.
And I don't think there was any type of an electrical storm or anything weird like that could have set off some kind of an anomaly, right?
There was no weather. It was a clear night. Now, could there have been some of our own equipment in the area that were working on stuff? Yeah, there was definitely. We had different type of facilities outside our base that may have been working on some stuff that could have triggered something.
Wow. Is that kind
through
of
the research that I've done, and we found, in these facilities and what they were actually working on, it could have triggered something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was it exotic technology? Do you have any idea what they were working on by chance?
Well, it was a facility. There was two interesting facilities, plus there were some other ones too. But RAF Bentwaters it was a radar site, but they were working on particular types of EM frequency work and stuff like that. Matter of fact, the area where we were in is where they actually, first created radar, worked on radar, and did a bunch of other stuff. There was all kinds of activities going on there. And there was another facility called Rendlesham Heath. There was a communications and also a facility that worked on other stuff. And one of the interesting things about Rendlesham Heath was, I don't know how much you know about different things, but one of the things was back in that time frame, in the early 80s, there was a whole group of Marconi scientists that died under mysterious circumstances. And several of them that were working for Marconi were actually down there working at Rendlesham Heath. And they were working on different things like the drones. They were the early development of drones, EM stuff. They were working on SDI, Star Wars, and a bunch of different things. And they were all working on that right down in that area.
Holy cow.
So, and then they also had a facility that was closed, but it was Cobra Mist. And if you do research on Cobra Mist, it was over the horizon radar, which is the early infancy of HARP and stuff. And a lot of those scientists, when mysteriously they had to shut it down if they spent a lot of money because there was some kind of interference coming inland that was keeping it from working properly. But most of those scientists stayed and actually were transferred to Rendlesham Heath or onto Bentwaters. And they were working on something, and it all involved all that stuff.
So, wow. And that was right under your nose, hidden in plain sight.
It was right there, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. It almost reminds me of the Philadelphia experiment a little bit, some of the stuff you're talking about.
Well, the Philadelphia experiment, and then there was, I never get it right, so I'm going to try to say, there was some kind of other experimentation that was going on out in Staten Island.
Montauk?
Yes. Yeah. And if you did your research and you took a look at, now obviously you couldn't get into exactly what the guts of the radars were and stuff, but the radars themselves, those particular radars that were there were also at RAF Bentwaters just down the road.
Oh, man.
So it's very possible that whatever was going on there could have been also going on over there. Or the interesting thing that I found out through my research was when Carter became president, he started shutting a lot of stuff down. And at one point, they moved a lot of this stuff overseas because they were having to avoid some of the stuff. And you can also remember all the issues they had in the middle 70s and going into that time frame where they got caught busting the mind control stuff, the drug use and all that. So all that was going on during that time frame, and there was investigation stuff going on. And it seems like they moved a lot of that stuff outside of the borders of the United States to keep it away. So there was all that stuff going on during that time frame our incident happened.
Wow, that's pretty intense. And now, did you ever feel anything like a psychotronic hit, like a psychotronic program with visuals or anything like that, or did Jim feel that?
Jim, we never really talked about it, that part very much, but there was static electricity in the air. Okay. There was, everything slowed down besides the loss of time. Everything slowed that way down. And then you looked at different things that the blue lights did, like they split into different things. That beam of light that came down at Colonel Halt's feet, the slowing of time, the back, the possible missing time. There was all kinds of things that played into it, but it's also possible that what we encountered could have caused most of that too, which through research, the MOD was well aware of the fact that there's a phenomenon that exists, and it existed in that area, and that we actually had an encounter with the phenomenon out there, and the different things the effects it could cause and everything else. Right. So, that's very well possible, or it could have been very well. One of the things that comes out of my hypnosis, which I like to separate from what I remember, is that it was clear in the hypnosis that what we were doing there, the projects we were working on, what we were trying to create and do, drew something in. And at that time, we got sucked into both what we were doing and this phenomenon that showed up into the area.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's very well possible, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've always understood that military tends to stake power spots across the board around the planet.
Right.
So that would make sense insofar as them probably being there and having some kind of an anomaly to begin with. Now I'm wondering if they weren't doing, through their testing, opening up some kind of a dimensional portal that was creating this anomaly or bringing it in, like you had mentioned. You know?
Well, the thing I can tell you about the area, because I only was there for 2 years, but if you talk to the people that live over there in that area, there's been all kinds of weird stuff going on there before what happened to us. Mm-hmm. And there's also been other things that have been talked about. Different Air Force guys had seen stuff prior to our incident. And there was stuff that went on after. And even to this day, the base itself is closed. And there's still all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on in that forest in that area. Mm-hmm. Stuff. And so when you look at the area and a lot of stuff, you kind of have to put it together. Cobra Mist didn't work right because there was an interference inland. Well, what would cause that interference? Mm-hmm. It could be that type of stuff. Is it possible there's wormholes and those kind of things around the world? Well, do we have the smoking gun that says for sure? No. But is there a lot of stuff that says there is? You bet.
Oh, absolutely.
And that could be one of those areas that is. And obviously, you can't help mankind. Now, I always people say I'm, ripping our government alone. All the governments of the world are like this. They want power. They want control. And they're all working on it. And so you bet if they knew there was an area, even because it was funny, the people from Stanford Research Institute were called in to evaluate Cobra Mist. And they found the anomaly or whatever it was inland causing a problem. They didn't leave. They stayed when they closed Cobra Mist down. And those people are neck deep in any kind of technology, future technology. Mm-hmm. Wow. And they stayed there and they were working there. So, and now these are all facts. This isn't conjecture. This was all facts. This all went on. They were all there and they were working on this kind of stuff over there. As far as that. And then you have some stuff that you can't verify. Like there was a Dr. Anderson, supposedly that works on time travel, that might have actually been working over there. He claims he was. But there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on over in that area.
Oh, I bet. So. And why was the base closed? Did they just... What happened?
Well, the Cold War ended, so, Bentwaters Woodbridge was a huge base. When we were there, it was the largest attack fighter wing in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. So there was no real reason to keep all those bases over there. Now, one of the things I heard through the grapevine that was interesting was they actually wanted to keep Bentwaters and Woodbridge open, but the prime minister at the time, I think he was John Majors, he was from up in a different area of the base, Alconbury or another base. So politics got into the middle of it and they kept those bases open and they closed Bentwaters and Woodbridge down. Wow. Because it was for money and they drew down everything because they built up and then they took everything down. Mm-hmm. So.
It's really amazing. And you revisited the area, didn't you?
Yeah, I went back in 2010.
Okay. And what did you get? What kind of energy did you get? Was there a signature there of some kind, or?
Well, when we went over there, the Linda went over with us. She brought down a guy by the name of Wayne Keach, and he brought down all kinds of equipment, including meters and everything else. Now, in that area where the incident took place, there was a huge EM factor in that area still. And also, he had infrared cameras, and we caught some stuff on infrared camera, blue and red lights. They were like orbs or something that were in this area.
Interesting.
That were clearly there. And at one point, we were out there one day. I can't remember which day it was, but we were out there doing some filming. And Jim had some weird experience where he actually was like reliving it. And it's on, you can see it on Ancient Aliens. There's a clip where it shows him redoing it, and he went like into a trance almost, and he was like reliving the whole thing. And I can just tell you, this is the one time I can tell you I had a weird feeling. I felt like whatever it was left, and I said the energy field's gone now, and they all looked at me like I was a little bit nuts. Well, the guy went back out there. Wayne went back out there with all the equipment that night. It was gone. The whole energy field and everything was gone.
Very interesting.
So whatever was there before, the field itself was gone then that night. So.
Wow. And I'm wondering if your psychic energies, just from having the interaction with it before, brought that back in to some extent over there with some kind of an imprint.
Well, it was definitely weird. I mean, he was a different person there for a good 5 minutes. It was strange.
Mm-hmm.
It was really strange to watch what went to happen. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And was it healing at all or no?
The thing with me was that at that moment I hadn't been sick yet. My heart hadn't started acting up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt it would be good for us to go back there at the 30-year mark and go back and see, I had never been back. Jim had been back a couple times, back to Bentwaters itself. I'd been back to the UK and did a filming, but I didn't get to go down to Rendlesham Forest. But I thought it would be good for us to go back there together, see if we remembered anything, see if it helped. But right before we went back, the binary stuff came up. And that started a lot of things. And in his reaction there in that field and stuff, and it did seem to, I had some weird feelings too. So yeah, going back did affect both of us a little bit. And and stuff. So instead of like maybe getting some closure, it actually opened up more things and more possibilities. So.
Right, it's almost like a trigger perhaps.
Yeah. Right, I can't disagree with that totally.
Wow, and so Jim was the one who activated something with the ship by touching the symbols. Is that correct?
Right. What he said was he got up, walked around it, saw the symbols, put his hands on the glyphs, and when he touched the glyphs, then he had a download of ones and zeros.
Interesting. And that's like an escape code for computer programming.
Right. There's been all kinds. I'm not a computer guy, but there's been all kinds of people going back and forth on this and stuff. The thing is, the sites are very intriguing. I mean, you have one in Sedona, or somebody else that worked on this with Linda says, no, it's not actually Sedona. It's Montezuma Wells, I think it's called, right down the road from Sedona. But it's right in that whole area. And if you know anything about that area of Arizona and that part, that is where the Hopi is from, and some other tribes, the Zuni, I believe, were there and stuff. And there's a whole thing about that whole area, the culture, the early on and all that. So that's an intriguing area. Then you go down to the second one, which is down in Central America. And that one is right there where the pyramids were. It was right on the bottom of a pyramid. But then there's some people that said, because they call them transmission errors, there's two of these, the three of them on this side of the world, you had to put number in. There was a number that they had to put in. So if you put it as whatever it was in there, it showed Sedona and the one down there. Now, if you put a different one, it moved to Montezuma Wells, and then it moved to the burial mounds in southern Illinois. Right there on the two rivers where they converge. But then again, that's ancient stuff again, Then the third one was down on the Nazca lines in Peru. Then you had three that were over on the other side of the world. One was in China in a sacred site. Another one was right there in the pyramids there in Giza. And then the third one, that's the one that really shakes me up a little bit. Because it sits right there on the Temple of Apollo, 60 miles from where Revelations was written.
That's fascinating.
That one's really strange. And then you had the other ones under, there's people debated it. It was either at High Brazil, a mythical island sitting off the coast of Ireland, or the other point was it was sitting right in Woodbridge Town Center, right there. And there's stuff right there too. So all these sites relate to ancient burial grounds and stuff and cultures.
Right. Yeah. Before mankind and the modern man showed up, we have a lot of imprints here based on ancient artifacts. Oh, it's fascinating. Yeah. Well, you guys definitely tapped into something on a bigger scale without a doubt, and it's left a big imprint in you, in both of you, I guess. But you have. Do you think it's your electrical system that got kind of surged out by the interaction you had that might have caused the heart issue?
Well, this is kind of stuff where I have to be careful what I say, because we've had some interesting people come into our lives over the years at different points. And one of the particular people that showed up, it was right after we did the disclosure in D.C. with Stephen Bassett where they had that mock hearing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was a doctor that showed up, and he contacted the lawyer and gave him some information. And there was a particular type of radiation that he knew about. And this particular radiation is a high spectrum radiation that actually, when you did some research on it, it could verify why, number one, how Jim could have gotten the binary code download, you know, and stuff. And also this particular radiation would affect our DNA. But this particular type of radiation would cause damage to like the mitral valve itself. And what was interesting is I never get it pronounced right, but just call it the front and back leaflet in your mitral valve. When you have mitral valve problems, it's the front leaflet that's always got a problem, and it showed damage. But the doctor was very puzzled because the damage that the leaflet showed didn't add to the symptoms that I was having. Well, after this doctor showed up, he wrote a letter he put it under, attorney-client patient privilege. So I can't really go into who he is and a lot of the stuff. But when that letter was written and given to the VA, who was in the middle of it because of the fact that Senator McCain's office was now breathing down their neck, when that got to certain doctors in the VA, they knew exactly what to look for. They identified the other leaflet as being severely damaged, and I had open heart surgery right afterwards.
Wow. So how are you doing now?
I'm getting a lot better, but it damaged my heart because I had 2 really bad rounds of AFib, and it damaged my heart. My fracture rate's not near where it should be, but it's gotten a lot better in the last few months, especially after I got the mechanical valve. But whatever we were exposed to, and within this radiation, it appears it could be this radiation that's not well known. It has implications for military usage. It also would explain, the binary, some DNA interest that's been put into us, and a bunch of other stuff, and it kind of all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
So,
yeah, and I don't know if you've ever. Are you familiar with implants at all, or do you think you might have actually had some?
Well, since you brought it up, I'm just going to tell you what happened. The interesting thing was, I'm sure you've heard of open minds before.
Oh yeah.
Well, John Rao approached me about being checked for that, and I kind of rolled my eyes at him. But Colonel Halt went up to a conference that they did in San Francisco 2 or 3 years ago, and he met Rao, and I don't know if he had some insight, but he actually contacted me and asked me if I would do it, and I kind of laughed, and I said, sure, you can lead the way, you do it first. But he actually, because he was a colonel that was out there, he actually said I should be checked for it. So I haven't, and I haven't let anybody touch my DNA either. So
I can't say I blame you. I was just curious if that. Yeah.
But no, I haven't been checked for it. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, okay? I'm what I call a meat and potatoes Midwestern kid. Now, I left, and I've lived out west most of my life. After I left, I was all over the world. But a lot of this stuff is just really hard to do.
Well, I'm glad you're kind of grounded, and that's probably good. It's probably a blessing in disguise considering what you've been through.
Right. But I mean, the implants, this other stuff, I mean, I've met a lot of really good people and interesting people, and when you listen to them, they make a lot of sense, but it's just not my reality totally, and what I grew up and was raised with or everything else, and it's kind of hard to wrap your arms around it, even though it could be possibly 100% true.
Right, yeah, I understand that for sure. And what about holographic technology? Did it seem like they might have been using holographic type technology with the training exercise that night?
I don't think so, and I don't want to say it isn't possible because, I mean, we're militarily wise. I'm not like some big defense expert like they bring on Fox News and CNN and all that. But I've seen some interesting equipment over the years and been around some stuff. And I was deployed in 4 places. But I just don't know. In 1980 we did, and I got a funny feeling that, I mean, the MOD documents that are out there that got released and are out there that were secret, they explain, I think it really was the phenomenon itself. And this phenomenon has the ability to control what you see and how you see it. And to the point of even, you'll actually try to go back to, you'll try to justify it in your mind. It can make you, you'll go to home to mama, I call it, where, oh, well, I can't make sense of this, so it's, this or that or whatever, you know
right.
what I mean? So I think my personal opinion, unless I can find something else otherwise, which the deeper I dig, it's possible, is that what we dealt with was what affected what we saw and how we saw it, and what we dealt with was more the phenomenon itself. It wasn't the us being able to do that at that point. Now, could we do it today? I believe so. I believe we were working on that. Let's put it this way. I'll go deeper. I've done a lot of FOIA with not only our government but also the MOD, and the MOD. These MOD documents were released Project Condign. A lot of that in the documents themselves, the stuff's still classified. It was redacted. You can't even see where they got the reference or what they did. And one of the things that was clear is the reason why it was redacted is because it dealt with defense. Okay, so they're breaking this phenomena down to try to figure out how to use it, and it calls from everything with, it can come in and out and not be seen on radar, then it can make itself seen, it can do all these different things. And one of the things some of the research leads to, it's not directly identified where it's coming from or how it's getting here, but there's research being done on it itself where it could lead to interstellar travel, which you understand right where that goes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like that was a while back, so obviously they probably have fine-tuned it.
Oh, they're working on it hard. I mean, they one of the things that I got, it was two interesting things. I'll start with our government. When the lawyer sent the FOIA stuff out, CIA said they will neither confirm or deny if they hold classified material on Rendlesham. Then the State Department, when they were contacted, they said, well, yeah, we're holding documents on Rendlesham or Bentwaters, but we won't release it. And the couple of things that are interesting about the State Department being involved is everything that went on overseas when you were overseas was reported to the State Department if it was an international incident or had, with a foreign country. So the State Department was notified of this incident. They had documents on it, and OSI, which was, the people that supposedly interrogated us, worked directly with State Department. Okay, so they said, yeah, we've got stuff on it, but we won't release it because it's not our documents, they're Air Force documents. Contact the Air Force. So we contacted the Air Force, and the Air Force denied having documents. So that was going to leave us with, we have to take it to federal court. Okay, so now I go out to the MOD. The MOD, by reading these MOD documents and doing some other stuff, finally, after quite a few questions, one of the things they admitted was they made a big deal a couple of years ago that they had released everything, right? Well, they haven't. They're holding on to more documents.
No surprise.
But people say that, but that's the problem. They're conditioning us to just accept this stuff now, So they lie to us, and then we accept it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why the lies continue, because they know, and some of it is hard. You have to, what are you going to do? You're going to go get a lawyer? You're going to take it to court? Well, yeah, it's not easy, but we are being so conditioned to accept lies nowadays that it's scary. I
agree. Yeah, it's even more scary that they have this exotic technology, and some of it's used in our favor, and a lot of it's used against us civilians. Not necessarily what you've been exposed to, but I know some of the other stuff they do and deploy. So, yeah, it'd be nice if they would just come clean and offer the information.
Well, okay, look, I mean, trust me. I mean, my level in the military I was an NCO, okay? So I don't have access to make national defense decisions on what should be national security and what shouldn't be. That's people well above my pay grade, and, and period, and then we have military and civilians making these decisions. So, some of it, obviously you want to keep it secret for different reasons, but it's to the point. My problem is where I cross the line is when they start manipulating people, and using it to the point of it's no longer in the best defense of the country. It's in, the best defense of, the industrial military complex, the civilian contractors to make all their money and stuff. That's when it crosses the line with me. I mean, you look at, they were spying on us and doing all this stuff, and that's gone too far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's escalated since, over the years. Obviously, I think these past 10 to 15 years have been incredibly insane. It comes down
Well,
to it.
I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you it wasn't that way 20 years ago. The
Yeah,
difference between that and 20 years ago is social media,
right.
and it's gotten, and more people are willing to talk,
Hmm.
but, this has probably been going on a long time, a lot longer than most people realize.
Hmm.
And the problem is this is where it gets weird to me. Why would they do that? To number one, why would the countries we all live in, why would they do it to us? I mean, you can give an answer for control, for power, to make us, minions, to support the rich getting richer and all that. But still, why as a human being would you want to do that to another
Hmm.
human being?
Yeah, you have to ask why is everyone's life so interesting, really? Um, yeah, that's a lot of manpower. I mean, anyway you look at it, it's a lot of monitoring and surveillance. So,
Well,
yeah.
all of it to
Hmm.
me is just wrong. And it is a world, all we want to do is destroy things. And I don't mean everybody, because then you'll get these emails like, I'm not like that. I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but
Hmm.
we're more warmongering and everything else and possession owned than we aren't. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say.
No, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah, you can say whatever you want. No, I totally resonate with that. And I do know that coming from the psychotronic aspects of the technology, I know that any data they acquire on people is going to be used as a weapon against them, or can be. And that's the problem that we're going to encounter down the road. That's what I foresee anyways. So, for I guess it's.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can't disagree with you on that, but the world's a pretty big place,
Mhm.
and you got two things that you have to take into account for, and I'm hoping, number one, the really people that I call sick that would want to hurt, would want to hurt mankind. You got to have people below them be willing to do it, and
Mhm.
I'm hoping that if it ever push comes to shove, that more people than not will say, no, I'm just not going to do it.
I agree. I so
You
agree with
know,
that. Yeah. And I
you
think it
know,
can happen. I do believe that there are good people out there. I really do. So just got to hold the vision for that one instead of the opposite. But yeah,
right,
these are strange
right.
times we live in, and yeah, it's just really really wild. How long ago did you say you had your surgery for your heart?
I had surgery in the middle of December of this last year.
Wow, so that was pretty recent, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I finally got in there, and they got a mechanical valve put in. So
So what are they doing to resolve it for you? Is there any compensation for this or anything?
well, I can go into a little bit of that. I mean, it started with when I got sick, my civilian doctor couldn't figure it out. So he said, I'd like to look at when you first got sick and had the problem and, get a look at your records, your medical records. I said, well, I was in the military. And he says, well, there's ways you can do that. So I tried, and I was getting stonewalled. So I went to a United States senator at the time. He was in office. He's retired now, by the name of Senator Kyle. And I requested for him to look into my medical records and my personnel records. Well, he put in requests, and he got denied at first on both, that they didn't know where they were, or they weren't where they belonged. So he pushed it a little harder, and he was able to get some of my personnel records, but not all of them, and they weren't where they belonged. And he wouldn't say where they got them, but they weren't where they belonged. So at that point in time, they wouldn't do anything with my medical records. So the aide that was working on it had been around for a long time. She said, I got a sneaky suspicion, and she put it in writing. She eventually put it in writing saying that your records may be classified for some reason, and she
Hmm.
wanted to know why, and I explained to her this incident, what went on. So she says, all right, you have to go down and file for disability for us to pursue your records further. So I went ahead and filed for disability. And at the time I had my first incident, but with my heart, but I was getting better. So I filed for disability in the spring or early summer, and heard nothing back from Senator Kyle's office till the fall. I sent him a letter, and I got a return letter saying, well, we couldn't get your medical records. We're sorry. He's retiring. Go to Senator McCain's office. So I did. I sent everything to McCain. They sent some stuff over. They showed an interest, but not a really strong interest. Like, wow, this is probably just, a snafu or something. So they did get me in to have me checked for disability possibilities. And when I went and saw the doctor for my review, she said two things that were, at the time, didn't make sense and were a little alarming, but turned out later why. She said, I don't have anything showing you were in the Air Force from 79 to 83 or any medical records. Well, when I finally got my denial packet, they said I wasn't in the Air Force when I said I got sick from 79 to 83. They actually doctored my DD Form 214.
Wow.
They didn't show me coming in, and they did. And when that happened and they didn't have my medical records, that's when Senator McCain's office really got into it. And they started asking questions, and the Air Force told them, no, he wasn't in. And they were like, wait a minute, we've got pay records, we've got a physical, we've got everything showing he was. And they denied it. I've got an email from the Air Force because they asked me to ask them themselves, and they said you weren't in. Well,
whoa.
I don't know what he did behind the scenes eventually, but it took about 6 weeks. But all of a sudden they did fess up that I was in, and they actually they redid my DD 4214 and admitted I was in. But a couple of things happened after that. They sent off to the VA and asked them to go ahead and give them my case file on what they used to review my medical conditions. Well, they sent them some stuff, and they acted like that was it. Well, when I went down to file the appeal, the guy doing my appeal had access to some of my stuff, and he says, this isn't even close to what they had. So they lied to Senator McCain again, saying that they gave him everything they had. They didn't. They didn't even come close.
Wow.
So then they got called on that, and they came back and gave some more stuff. But then we did an official request saying, how many documents do you have? And have you actually checked to see if this record's classified? All this stuff, they wouldn't answer it. They blew the FOIA. They wouldn't answer it. So they've broken the law and didn't answer the FOIA on it. Okay? So they will, and then Senator Sanders, which is the head of, I believe, the Senate for the VA thing, got in the middle of it. He came back and says, here's your records are classified. You need to go to special operations for it. Well, that has to be done through the VA. The VA will not answer if they've even checked to see if my records are classified. So there's something with my medical records that they don't want to release. And we're kind of in it's a stare down. They're doing some stuff behind the scenes that I can't go into right now. But one of the things is that this went from them just trying to get my medical records to now they're investigating what happened.
Oh, wow.
They're starting to ask what happened to these guys, what's going on. And so they're rocking the boat.
Good.
So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure yet. That's to be determined.
Wow. It's amazing to me that they just lie like that blatantly.
Well, have you been following all these hearings on all the other scandals?
Yeah.
What do? Congress asks for something and they don't give it to them. And they have to take them to federal court to get them to release it. Right. That's what we've turned into. Our government has turned into.
It's pathetic. It's all about money usually, too.
Yeah.
It comes down to that stuff. And obviously, do you guys, I think I've heard that you all do get some sort of nightmares associated with this. Is that correct or no?
Jim went into more details about having nightmares and that was one of the reasons why he went under hypnosis when it came out. Then when he was under that little clip that's been released on him where he talks about, he didn't remember it, but he got a shot. Then he's under hypnosis saying they did use sodium pentothal on him and some of the stuff that went on. But when he went into the person to do the hypnosis, it wasn't because of Bentwaters. It was because he was having the nightmares. And then eventually they did put him on some medication that was supposed to have helped. But the thing is he was having more nightmares. I'm not going to say I've never ever had a nightmare, never had anything, but I mean, I don't know. It's just, at the end of the day, this, every time you think you've reached the end of this, something else happens.
Right. Yeah, it seems that way. Now that the momentum's out there, it can probably morph into a lot of different things, I would imagine. But did Jim have some physical issues also, or no?
Yeah, he never has really explained it in full detail, but at one point he did mention he had some heart issues, and then he had vertigo problems and some other stuff that he's talked about before that happened after the incident. And then there's been a couple other people that, they said they had some vision problems and stuff. So yeah. Okay. And who's to say that other guys don't have problems that were close to it? And like with me, my heart, the only reason I found out my heart was an issue at all was because I was having be getting sick all the time. And when I had it checked, and it wasn't by the military now, it was by a civilian doctor that caught my heart murmur, when I was still in the military. But there could be people, some of this stuff, it could just, like my heart was overall went okay for years, and then all of a sudden it just went crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there could be stuff that could come up later, even with some people that got close to it. So.
Right, exactly. And you're a pretty big guy too, aren't you?
6'6", yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I thought you were a big guy. I saw that video, yeah. That's pretty impressive, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, but the vertigo is very interesting. You never had vertigo, huh?
You got to go on a break.
Yeah, you're good. We're gonna head for a break. We'll be right back. Everybody, please stay tuned.